At Bath Savings, you know us for our exceptional customer service. And that service extends to our secure online and mobile banking solutions, so you can feel comfortable accessing and managing your accounts wherever you are. And it's all backed by the same personalized customer service from neighbors right here in your community. To learn more about Bath Savings online and mobile banking solutions, visit bathsavings.com. Bath Savings, your neighbor, your bank.
Hager Enterprises, a paving and excavation contractor specializing in all sorts of site work, utility installations, and road construction since 1987.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of High School Hoops. I'm your host, Larry Seidling, and today I have a longtime special friend, high school, college, Hall of Fame basketball coach, basketball player. With me, Coach Jim Graffam of Waldoboro fame. Originally is where all the fame started. But boy, Jim, you have been, welcome to the High School Hoops, but you have been around the circuit, so to speak.
Yeah, Larry, you're testing my age, I think. So, anyway, it's been a heck of a ride, and I've enjoyed it. But and Midcoast Sports has has been very special from back in the '60s when I was there, right up to the present day. And look at the talent that there is there now. That's amazing to me.
Well, I'm going to get into that, but for the folks at home, I just want you to let me connect the dots a little bit. I think I was in 8th grade, so I'm dating myself a little bit here. Lewiston Armory, I went with Phil and Link Page to watch Waldoboro play a tournament game, and I think it was against Old Orchard Beach, but Jimmy can correct me, in the old Lewiston Armory, and Rick Simons at the foul line with a chance to win the game, which probably is as good a foul shooter there was in the state that year, and he missed. And Jimmy, you can tell the rest of the story.
Oh my goodness! Well, we were ranked seventh, and St. Ignatius was second, and they had a heck of a team, and we were supposed to get, I think, blown out. But anyway, we had some good players: Steve Ralph and Teddy Herrick and R.K. Simmons, and Rick and I were two Jackrabbit guards, I think they used to call us. But anyway, Rick got fouled with 3 seconds on the clock, and he had a 1-and-1, and he missed. And I can still see him now. He crumpled and fell right
to
on
the floor. I'll never forget it.
On the floor. And anyway, the outcome of all of that was that he became obsessed with shooting foul shots, and he and I both went to USM together. And over the summer, he would shoot hundreds of foul shots, and I rebounded for him. I should have been shooting jump shots back to him, but anyway, and he became. I mean, literally, he could make 80 or 90 in a row at while he was doing that over the summer. And if you look at the record book today, he still holds the highest foul shooting percentage at USM after. Well, we graduated in '72, so
50 plus years.
Yeah, 50 plus years. But man, that was hard, because we came so close to upsetting that team, and I remember it to this day because all of our big guys fouled out of the game, and that game went into overtime. And I had to jump center to start the overtime because all of the big guys that had fouled out. And anyway, but Rick had a chance, and he still talks about it today, Larry. So if you want to bring it up to him.
I think I was probably in 8th grade or I don't think I was a freshman, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it hooked me on high school basketball. And I played in high school, and though I didn't play my latter years, but I did play my early years in high school. But as you know, Jim, I've coached and now been talking about basketball for a long time.
Well, if you couldn't go to the Lewiston Armory with 2,000 people there with the balcony and everything. That was incredible. And I got hooked. My dad used to take me when I was in, well, middle school now, but it would be called middle school now. But anyway, I can still remember seeing all those great teams that were playing, and it was just I definitely got hooked. You wanted to get that opportunity to play in the tournament. So
Jimmy, you have had an outstanding career. You started, at course, like all coaches do, at the grade school, high school level, and moved up into the college ranks and even into the professional ranks as you coached some pretty good men's teams there along the way. Is there a favorite in the past 50 years that you've been coaching? Is there a favorite era or group that you prefer over one over the other, or do you just love teaching the game of basketball?
well, I would hate to single out any particular group, but I loved coaching at Madomic. That was a special time, and I know we're going to talk about it here in a minute. But boy, that was a golden era of Madomic basketball, and the Panthers kept banging on the door of trying to get to the state game, and we couldn't do it. We had 3 or 4 things that happened that caused us not to do it. But those 3 years that I spent there were really special, and I think just because it was my hometown, number one, but number two, to have a chance to work under Art Dyer uh, was really something. Um, and for those of you who don't remember Art, he was a defensive genius, and I used his stuff, even today. He was innovative, and he was a motivator. But we could defend anybody. Sometimes we didn't score real well, but we could defend. And Larry, I was so lucky because I went from Madomic to Bonnie Eagle High School. We had reasonable little success there, although I wish I'd had more. And then I got hired at St. Joseph's College, where I was really lucky to work under Rick Simons, who was an offensive genius. So I had the best of both worlds. You could kind of use Art Dyer's stuff in part of your practice and Rick Simons' stuff in the other. And you were one of the announcers for my Westbrook College team, and that last year that you were there, we averaged 105 points a game. So I give a lot of credit to Rick for that, and and obviously our defense helped us win 30 games. So I don't know about singling out an era, because players change, and situations are different, but it's the game itself. It's the respect of the game, because it's just a wonderful situation where you have 5 people and they have to work as a unit to be successful. And I've been lucky enough to have some players who believed in my philosophy, and we've been successful. At least in my mind, we were successful. I guess that's just my ego talking. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's the important mind anyway.
well, it is in my mind anyway. So
Jim, for the folks at home, you told me a story a long time ago when you were at Bonnie Eagle. You came to play Madomic, and Art put it to you pretty good. Something about a hick from the stick. Tell the folks at home a little bit about that story.
well, he did put it to me right after I got the job. I said, "Geez, I'd like to play," and so I wished I hadn't have afterwards. But
Looking
anyway,
back,
looking back, I don't think I needed to add to his victory totals because he already had enough. But anyway, we Bonnie Eagle was similar to Madomic. There were 5 towns that came together, and they'd actually been a SAD since the early '60s. And when I got the job in '77, they were still fighting the same old battles that really helped solidify, SAD 40, because by winning, it didn't matter if you were from Warren or Washington or Friendship or Waldoboro, you were a Madomic Panther. Well, I was still fighting. We were Bonnie Eagle Scots, but boy, the Buxton people thought that there were too many, Standish kids on the team, and so it was one of those deals. But anyway, yeah, I brought my team up, and I still remember that the Spear boys ref the JV game, and my JV coach got thrown out of that game. So he wasn't too happy with the boys. But anyway, and I'm not sure exactly what the reference you meant to bring up about the Hicks from the Sticks, but I was trying to think of what was the older lady that used to come out with the she I can't think of a name right now,
I
but
can't either, but I remember who you mean.
she came out and put a hex on me before the game started. She had a little, I don't know, rosary beads or something, but she didn't need to. We were going to get beat anyway. So, but yeah, that was a fun time to come back, but not a good way to drive home.
Jimmy, we've got a show coming up here with a fellow by the name of Dave Albee that wrote a book, which easily could have been written about Waldoboro. Last man out, turn the lights off, about that great 75 state championship game between Dover Foxcroft and Madomic Valley. And Dave, of course, he's a graduate of Dover Foxcroft. But you, as I were, you were at the game on the bench as a young coach. I was a young spectator in the stands following a team that nobody in the world could beat us. We found out different that night.
We certainly did, and when you called me about this, Larry, I was thinking. It seems like there's always a player or two that comes along each generation that is just unbelievable. Back in my era, and I'm sure this is long before you, but Joe Harrington and from Morse, and Johnny McDonald from Stearns. They both got scholarships to go to Maryland, which was unheard of back in that time. Nick Scasher from Sanford, he had 44 points in the state championship game. Dave Pound averaged 40 points for Millinocket, and that. Oh man, oh man. And I had the pleasure or displeasure of playing behind Matt Donahue, who was from Westbrook, and that young man could not be stopped as much as I tried. So there's always a player like that, and in this book, it should highlight and showcase Kevin Nelson, because he was that generational player that only comes along once in a while. He could do stuff that we hadn't seen, and it's one of those deals you couldn't simulate it in practice, because what was he, 6'8" or 6'9", with he could reach across the lane, and he just dominated, and it was an incredible eye opener for me as a young coach, and I did everything he could, but I think we only scored, was it 53 points in that game?
The final score was 56-53, I think was the final, but I remember that first minute of the game, a minute and a half of the ball game, I think everything Madomic threw up came right back at him.
Well, I got thinking about this after you had mentioned you were going to do it. He blocked all 5 players in the first quarter, so everybody that took a shot had it rejected. And we were a high scoring team for one of our defensive teams. We were scoring in the 70s, 80s all year, and all of a sudden, we were looking around. Where is he? Where is he? And that was just it was incredible. And you're going to get into this, but because the name of the book is "Turn Out the Last Person Out of Town, Turn Out the Lights." Well, Madomic's crowd, you being one of them, was huge, and so wasn't theirs. So it was 2 small towns in Maine going at it, and they beat us, unfortunately.
Well, it was the big stage, and I don't think either team had ever played in front of a crowd. Madomic certainly had played in front of some big ones in the tournament leading up to it, but that Augusta Civic Center was a full house that night, packed to the rafters.
Yeah, I remember it was hotter than heck, but yeah, and well, it was we always had a huge crowd, but we kind of dominated that whole area. I mean, I know that the guys that ran the state tournament, they loved it when Madomic was there because they made a lot of money on the
They
on
did.
the
The
on the
NPA,
crowd.
for once in their life, were happy.
Yeah. And it's a wonder they didn't, increase ticket prices or something. But anyway, but then you have Dover Foxcroft, who they brought probably as many as we had, I believe, and so that place was packed. And I remember walking out on the court early and it was already filled. I mean, it wasn't like, the people coming in halfway through the first quarter. Everybody was sitting there, they kind of sitting on their hands waiting for something exciting to happen.
Well, it certainly was memories. Dover Foxcroft was a school that had come together. Dover and Monson had come together, just like Madomic. Like you said, the fishermen and the farmers had got together in Madomic and came together as Madomic Valley Panthers. The Dover Foxcroft ponies came together with Dover and Foxcroft and that town, and there was still some of those feelings that you talked about at Bonnie Eagle coming together. So I'm really excited. The book hasn't been released yet, but I know you're a reader. You'll read it. I can't wait for it to come out and get an eyeball on it.
It's going to showcase, I guess I'd call it small town basketball in Maine, which is, it's bigger than just what it sounds like. To have two passionate fan bases, who followed these teams the way that they did, and to have them come together and collide. And I know that there's still people talking about that game, saying, "Geez, how did we lose it?"
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Kevin Nelson was the
Yeah.
difference in the ball. He was the difference maker, and even though Madomic had Al Barron, who matched up almost size wise, Al hadn't had too many block shots on him all season long, and that happened that night.
I remember late in the game, Chucky Begley, who was 6'4" and a heck of a player and a great person and all that. He went in for a layup, and I remember just before he went up, he looked over his shoulder to see if Kevin was coming, and he missed it. And it was a huge pivotal play in that game because it was like, I don't know, with 3 or 4 minutes left. So.
Do you think, Jim? Well, wouldn't it be nice? I would say. Well, I'll say this: if somebody would do the research, that was a writer on all the great dynasties there have been in high school basketball in Maine over the last even 50 or 60 years. You could go back to the 60s, the Moore Stearns games and the
Yeah.
Waterville teams of the 40s, and the great Madomic run in the 70s, and Jonesport Beals and Valley, and I mean it just goes on and on. Some of these schools that have had some great runs, great tradition in high school basketball.
Oh, I know, and it's exciting. Number one, that Madomic's part of that because it really uh, gave notoriety to the mid coast. Because I remember when I was in high school, we couldn't get an article in the Portland Press Herald because they covered the Portland teams. But I'd brought he showcased that, hey, there's some kids up here who can play too, and they deserve to be. Showcased. And you're right, boy, that would be an interesting read because there are some dynasties. I mean, I'm sure you went to the Bangor Auditorium to watch, Stearns play and those great Waterville teams and Morse's teams and
Yeah, and Morse had a run back in the 80s. I think they won two or three states in a row. Or late 80s, early 90s.
yeah,
Of course,
it was
Camden Rockport, they won 6 or 7 state championships there over a
exactly.
period of about
Yeah.
15 years and built a tradition. But and now along the coast of Maine here, we are so blessed. I mean, Camden's competitive, Rockland's competitive, Oceanside's competitive, Menominee, Lincoln Academy's competitive. It's basketball all the way down to York, Yarmouth, Greeley. They're all really, really tough teams.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mentioned it before. I think that the mid coast is really in the last 5, 6 years, the whole level, both boys and girls have come to the front and have it's not just one team. It's a whole area. And you always think of the Greeley's, the Yarmouths, the Cape Elizabeth as being, on the top shelf, but now we're able to compete with them, and it's kind of nice. I think I saw that Lincoln Academy beat Cape this year, I think,
Mhm.
and that's, I mean, that wouldn't have been that would have been a huge article, back in the '70s because Cape Elizabeth was always so good, and Lincoln probably didn't was in the same conversation, but they are today, and that's great.
Jimmy, let's go back to your college coaching days a little bit before we run out of time here, because you had the opportunity to coach some great players. Paul Peterson, Derek Vogel, you had a Brown there. You had a bunch of guys that just came together and put Westbrook on the map, not only here in New England, but around the country with
Yeah,
the
I
Westbrook
was.
college team.
Yeah, and I'm. Some people probably know this, and if they do, I apologize. But I'd been at St. Joe's for 8 years as a baseball coach and assistant basketball, and the Westbrook College job opened up, and they hadn't had sports there since 1945, and this was in 1990, so it was 45 years later, and I was hired as the athletic director and men's basketball coach. May 20th. And so as Larry, you were a part of this. The guys I got May 20th, you can imagine they weren't they weren't the high level basketball players that because all of the good players had already decided what the school they were going to. And I got 14 players in that year. I was really lucky, but they were undersized, or they were too slow, or they didn't shoot it, or whatever. But we were fortunate. I got four kids off the playgrounds in New York that had never played high school basketball, and one of them happened to be Paul Peterson. And I was so fortunate that I got him. And the other guys realized that, hey, you know what? No one went after us, and we got a chance to play college basketball, and they turned something. We went 13-13, and then 17-10 and 26-5, and then we won 30 games there when Paul was a senior. But and Paul was obviously a big part of that. He scored 2,600 points and had 1,700 rebounds for a guy that never played in high school. And the story. He was diagnosed with cancer like a month after he came onto campus, and he had to have an 8-hour operation and came back from that. The doctor had told me at the time that if they hadn't have found it when they did, he'd have been dead within a year. And so he kind of was living on borrowed time, and he played like that. And not only was he a heck of a player, but he's just a wonderful human being who helped bring more people in. Like he was an All-American. Derek Vogel comes in, he was an All-American, and we just had some good, solid human beings that were a member of that whole situation. Unfortunately, it ended the way it did, but
Yeah.
things,
Well,
things happen.
it was an interesting, there's a story in itself because it was, oh, for use of a better word, a ragtag group of individuals that came together and for a greater cause and a greater good. And they were all good people. They weren't just pretty good athletes. They were all really good people that understood that, what team, there's no I in team, and how important that is, and banded together and realized they were creating something really special. It was kind of like you say, the way it ended with Westbrook merging with UNE. It was kind of a low blow in my book, but I'm a little rough around the edges anyway. So, but I never felt that the Westbrook people really got the opportunity in UNE to do it to extend what they had already created.
Yeah, that was the shame of it. And I've said this. I don't think that UNE was as driven produce successful programs as we were. And I'm sure I probably would have been fired if I had been hired. So it's probably just as well that I moved on. But anyway, yeah. But that was a great ride, Larry. And you obviously with the TV channel helped us a lot. And you saw that we were special in that we were a team, we were a family, we were all those, I guess coach speaks that everybody wants, but not everybody gets. And I was proud of what we were able to accomplish because we beat some teams that we never should have.
Well, I
Just
think, of course, certainly the great teams that Hassan had up there in the late '80s and early '90s with Bruce McGregor there, and of course Simons had those unbelievable
yeah.
teams over St. Joe's, and you took them all on and whooped a few of them a few times.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, that was fun. Basketball at the collegiate level has kind of gone backwards a little bit in my estimation, but that's okay. That's every era is probably thinks that theirs is better, but there was some great teams. I mean, Umpy had some really good players back then. Machias was good. Thomas was up and down, but they had some good players. Farmington, you can name them, and it was good. I remember telling you, I wish that basketball was a little bit easy in the state of Maine, but it wasn't. You had nationally ranked teams, you had high level play, so it was fun, but it was a challenge.
Jimmy, you've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some brilliant basketball minds and great coaches. Uh, I'll put you on the spot. Your top three.
Oh boy, oh boy. My
I'm
top.
sure Mr. Dyer is probably in there somewhere.
Oh, he would be number one because if you put it into perspective, I mean, I was wet behind the ears. I mean, I was in my 20s when I got a chance to work for him, and every day was like I couldn't wait to get to practice. I couldn't wait to go to school and talk to him. So I mean, he shaped me a lot, and I'm incredibly thankful for he gave me a philosophy, and then I kind of morphed it into what I was and thought about. But he would definitely be there, and obviously I've mentioned Rick Simons. I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed coaching with Nick DePatsy. I think that he does a good job, and I've had two or three people out here in Joplin that I've worked for that I really like. The last guy that I worked for is a head coach now, and Nick Pfeiffer, and he does a great job. His scouts are unbelievable, but I don't know. I mean, Larry, every coach is kind of a mosaic of other coaches. I mean, like I stole half my stuff from Dean
You're all a
Smith.
bunch of thieves.
Well, exactly. If we didn't steal, we wouldn't have, we wouldn't know anything. But as I said, I stole most of my stuff from Dean Smith, and then you take a little bit from Art Dyer, and then Rick, and the guy at Villanova. I got a lot of stuff from him, and it's just one of those things. And one of the things that we mentioned it before, it gets in your blood, and you can't give it up because you enjoy it and you enjoy the competition. But it's all about players and the game itself, which is beautiful.
What the game is all about. Well, Jimmy, as usual, time just flies by in these sessions when I connect with old friends here and whatnot. And I never have enough time, but I know you're probably catching a few Madomic games on LCTV.org. At least I hope you are anyway.
I am.
And we got a pretty good team here, both at Lincoln Academy. Madomic's got an exceptional Class B team. I think they're going to be contender. They got to get by York for certain. What's your
Yeah,
take on
this
this
might
year's?
be. I don't want to put any pressure on him, but this might be next year to finally get it done. But because I think he's got all the pieces to the puzzle. But there's always some team like Dover Foxtrot, right, who's waiting in the wings to it, and you got to get by him. But yeah, and Oceanside's playing well, and it's fun to see Lincoln Academy doing what they're doing. And I see that Wiscasset is actually making a comeback too, which would be
We're anxious to have some Wiscasset games on. A
yeah,
longtime coach, you may have known him, Tim Flanagan, just passed here a little while ago.
yeah. He was at the USM when I was there. He was a heck of a golfer down there. So
Yep.
and a wonderful man. God Almighty.
Well, Jim, I hate to say goodbye. I'm sure we'll catch up again in the near future. I know you'll be back to Maine here this spring, so you know where we are, Hollywood Sheepskin Road here and on the Sheepskin Road, LCTV. And thanks so much for taking a little bit out of your time out there, and be safe, my friend.
I will. Thanks, Larry. I appreciate it, and I'll be looking forward to seeing what you finally put together over this book. So
Well, we're really excited about this. It's called The Last Man Out of Town, Turn Off the Lights, and it highlights the 75 state championship between Dover Foxcroft and Madomic Valley Panthers. And I can't wait to read the book. I'm going to go up for the book signing in Dover Foxcroft in February, and we're going to have Dave, and I got Kevin Nelson and Al Barron in the studio here in a few weeks.
wow.
So it's going to be Larry's winter is complete. I don't need to go south. I'm going to be good right here. Jim, thanks again.
Yeah,
We
thank
appreciate
you.
it. You
Thank
folks at
you.
home, thanks for this episode of High School Hoops. Thanks for my special friend, Jim Graffam, longtime buddy, high school and Maine Hall of Fame basketball coach, and we really appreciate the time. Folks, thanks for watching this episode of High School Hoops, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
At Bath Savings, you know us for our exceptional customer service. And that service extends to our secure, online and mobile banking solutions. So you can feel comfortable accessing and managing your accounts wherever you are. And it's all backed by the same personalized customer service from neighbors right here in your community. To learn more about Bath Savings online and mobile banking solutions, visit bathsavings.com. Bath Savings, your neighbor, your bank.
Hager Enterprises, a paving and excavation contractor specializing in all sorts of site work, utility installations, and road construction since 1987.